Delighted to be joined today by Steve Alton, Chief Executive Officer of the BII, the British Institute of Innkeeping, who's the UK's leading professional body for individuals in the licensed hospitality sector. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
I'm sure you agree with Steve that the UK pub sector has remained remarkably resilient, having faced a year or more of rising cost pressures, interest rate hikes and inflation. Today we want to discuss some of the key issues impacting the sector and gauge our outlook for the year ahead. The cost of operating a pub has never been higher, yet operators have continued to adapt and find ways to relieve some of the cost pressures, such as increasing food and drink prices and integrating technology. I just wonder if you could elaborate a little bit from your experience how operators have responded in this market.
Well, overall costs have been exceptional, as you say. If you look at food and drink, over 20% inflation for them has been in place for a couple of years now, so it's really embedded in their costs. They can't pass that on just neatly to consumers. They've got to look at affordability because it would have two massive issues. One is demand would fall away because there's an elasticity about pricing and getting good value. But equally, we're going to drive inflation. So exactly what the government doesn't want to do, it would actually cause us an issue. But in addition to that, we've got energy that is 2 to 3 times now what we were paying kind of pre-pandemic, which is significant when you're running large kitchens, cellars, and now increasingly, through the winter period, heating as well is going to be a huge amount of cost for these businesses. And on top of that, national living wage has now come in. So since 2020 to really the new rate that will come in the spring in 24, it's 40% increase over that period. And our operators have had to actually spend more money than that to attract and retain staff. So you're absolutely right, exceptional. And it's all about conversion. That is what operators are really struggling to do, be them small wet-led community pubs or larger, more diverse kind of food-led operators. It's really tough to make a profit. And we did a survey of our members just a few weeks ago, and really it's a third are going backwards. They're not seeing the growth to levels they had previously. A third are about in line with what they'd have expected normally, and a third are actually growing, be it relatively modest growth. But those that are either flat or up, only 1 in 2 is at break even, and that's the real challenge for these guys. How do you change that? So what are the really progressive operators doing? Lots and lots of things. So sustainability you're hearing a lot about, but that's everything from being really lean. It's about business survival and making sure everything they do is really sharp around energy and waste particularly, but also sustainability is at the heart of great pubs. It's a showcase for amazing food and drink from that brewer that's 10 miles down the road or something that's grown literally across the wall from the pub, and that gives a premiumisation opportunity for pubs as well, because we're seeking something that little bit different. We can all go to supermarkets and buy ready-made food, but we want something that's far more authentic, far more sustainable, and you cannot replicate that amazing atmosphere that's generated by brilliant people giving you great service as well. You've got to be far more than just a pub in the old world. 1 in 3 visitors now to pubs don't drink. It's not an alcoholic experience. It's something very different. It could be coffee, breakfast, could be just a simple meal. And it's making sure you're appealing to different demographics. So those that maybe didn't consider the pub to be their place, how do you make it far more appealing? So you've got to be incredibly diverse, and the progressive operators are well down that journey, and the pub has become something quite different, and for them, just become a community hub for everyone.
These short-term cost pressures, what's the kind of advice you're giving to your members about how to deal with those? And do you see that as a sort of short-term phenomenon, or do you see those playing out over the next 12 months?
I think it's going to be longer than 12 months. I think we're talking about a number of years now to kind of wash through the inflationary impact that we've had for the energy market to restabilise, because right now it's still a very dysfunctional and unfair marketplace, particularly for pubs. Pubs are still paying more than equivalent businesses. You're going to have to look at every area of your business. So that's in terms of from the sales mix, who you're appealing to, what do you actually have as a great offer. So things like low and no, things like vegan food, things like kind of again non kind of animal meat, kind of protein, and looking at substitutes. It's no longer a hassle factor for a lot of pubs. Actually, principal decision makers in groups are seeking those things. I've got good friends who are the vegan or the non-drinker, and they will dictate where we go. And actually, there's a premium opportunity for those guys, because when you really look after them, they hugely value that. So there is a huge opportunity. But I think we're reverting back to, and we've got innkeeping in our name, which is, when I first came on board to do this role, it was always, is that reflective? But the inn was the place that everybody went to to catch up, to find out what was going on, to stay overnight, to have a meal, to have a drink. So it's becoming that really versatile community space once again, and you can see that with great operators. So there's an opportunity, I think, for pubs to regain, if you like, their central role in the communities that they've always had.
How do we sort of try and retain that pub is the hub type community feel? Because I think, touching upon your point, the pub has managed to do that, and that probably sets it apart from some of the hospitality venues within the sector. How do you see that from a cultural perspective, keeping that going?
I think firstly, pubs have the ability to change pretty rapidly. The pandemic showed us that. If it's takeaways or deliveries or just doing very different things to what they'd done traditionally as a pub, they move very, very quickly. So we've done this report with CAM, as you said, and it's about a pub roadmap, and it's about evolving the pub model. And there's some great data in there that compares and contrasts what consumers are really seeking versus what actually operators are providing. And there are material gaps. Again, consumers, we've changed hugely in terms of our tastes and also our expectations of what is value now.
So what are the main changes you've seen from a consumer perspective? I mean, we read about, particularly in towns and city centres, that people are working 3 days a week, so therefore, that's had an impact on trading patterns in city centres. And I think we all see that. We see the early midweek trade being quieter. We see people going out earlier, but going home earlier. So, how much of that do you think is a sort of permanent shift in behaviour, and how much do you think that will return back to, in inverted commas, normal at some point in the future?
I think some of them are permanent. To what extent, I think we've yet to find, because I don't think we've found actually our natural state and what's working for particularly businesses where they're trying to drive very different cultures, and it's very difficult to drive some of that when you are remote. Equally though, the pub has become that third space. Business activity in pubs is really, really growing, be that as individuals, as finding somewhere that there's a different space to maybe working in your back room, but equally having kind of business meetings as well. But overall, not just the hours that consumers now spend in pubs, but what they're looking for is very different. We always hear about premiumisation and personalisation, two big things, but it's very real. People want an experience. They want something, whatever that means for them. So it can be that local beer or the new beer from down the road that they've never seen before, or having gin from the area. If you're in a Derbyshire pub, you want Derbyshire gin, or on the southwest or whatever, and you want it your way, definitely. But you want the theatre, you want the smile, you want the experience. But there's definitely premium. There's an opportunity. We will pay. But equally, you're looking for something quite different now. As I say, 1 in 3 visits are no longer alcohol related. You go for different reasons, and those pubs that are providing experiences and opportunities, and it can be the pub quiz, but maybe in a new world format, or it could be live music, or it could be competitive socialising. You've heard huge things about, but it is working. It's given a point of difference. But if I give you a really good example, so our Licensee of the Year award that we do, phenomenal competition, incredibly comprehensive review, so very esteemed to win. And our current winners, which is Joe and Flo from the Tollymash Arms in Harrington, they look to this time of the year, and it's always a bit of a dip, when you're kind of heading into, Christmas trading. Every year's the same. And they thought, well, what else could we do? Hugely sustainable, passionate about sustainability. So they brought in dining in the dark as a simple concept, and they turned literally all the power off. They were candlelight, and even the kitchen, and this is a testament to Joe as a chef who wanted to try something very different. They cook on charcoal. And they've sold it out night after night. People love the experience. He's providing a real premium but limited menu, because there's a set menu, which means his GP's much better, so he can manage that. He knows who's coming in because it's pre-booked, and people absolutely love it. And it's created a huge halo and love for the pub. So after that event, they're coming back in with friends and family to show them the place they went to. So creating something that's very different and very unique is key.
In terms of just going back to the autumn statement, just want to touch upon support for hospitality, generally in pubs in particular. That was sort of a bit of a mixed bag in many respects. There were some positives in terms of rating relief, being extended, freeze on alcohol duty, but equally minimum wage will put additional cost pressures on the sector. What was your take on that? How did you feel on behalf of your members? Was that well received? Was it what you expected, or would you have liked a bit more?
We did ask for some very specific things at the autumn statement. It is different to a full budget, and we have that very much in our crosshairs as we head into spring to see really some bigger changes that are going to make all the difference. But what we wanted at this one was early notice of an extension of business rates relief. Really important for so many pubs, not all, because a lot of smaller pubs don't pay business rates, but for the majority, a really important concession. Equally, the freeze on beer duty, be it for a relatively short period, so it's aligning to the autumn as well, is welcome because it's yet another pressure on why food and drink costs should be increasing. We want to remove those. But overall, our ask has always been consistent. It is about reducing the tax burden for pubs, across the board, because it is unfair. If you look at it as a trading entity, it's disproportionate to their footprint, and that's business rates. Yeah. We need a long-term solution for that. But equally, just in terms of the amount of tax they pay to the Treasury, as part of the bigger hospitality sector, we've gone from 42 billion to 54 billion to the Treasury. Now, that's been driven through receipts and obviously through kind of VAT, but the issue for the government, that isn't sustainable. And I go back to conversion is the real challenge. So was it enough? No. The national living wage for many negated entirely the impact of a continuation of the business rates relief, because it's not just about entry level. And I think, again, government MPs need to understand that there's a layering up impact when you bring in another national living wage increase. And if you go back to, as I say, 2020 to 2024, it's 40% increase at a time when pubs have been either restricted in trading or closed and definitely taking debt during that period. So that's a hell of a thing to have to deal with. So what we're looking at now is within that taxation bundle, it generally be brought down. Our members have always prioritised VAT. It was done during the pandemic. We know it's unpalatable. We know it's an expensive thing, but more expensive is unnecessary business failure and also choking growth, because that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about a lot of operators just bubbling along with that conversion rate so small in terms of profitability, whereas actually relieving a little bit of that pressure, they would invest in team members, they would invest in their property, in their offer. And we need to see that, because that's going to unlock growth. And yet again, even as we are kind of working against all these headwinds, we are actually part of the growth story for the UK economy. So actually, they need to invest. It's not about giving us money back. It's about unlocking the growth potential of the sector. So that's front and central within our asks of government for the budget. Differential rate of duty for beer served in pubs, really important concession, but it needs to be an actual cut. Last time it was applied, all it did is negate the effect of RPI, so we didn't actually improve the position for pubs at all. But the intention is there, so we just need to make that work genuinely. And I said we do need a long-term solution for business rates, because we have to be in the high streets and communities. We have to occupy these expensive buildings to do what we do. Digital economy is still not levelled up, which is deeply frustrating for those running pubs in those locations. But we need a long-term multiplier, something like 25p in the pound, specifically for pubs, recognising their community and social value, and that they are disproportionately affected by something such as rates.
Yeah, and it's not just the pub sector, is it? I mean, I think the property rate system is predicated on occupying property to run a business, and a lot of businesses don't need to occupy property to run a business. So it's that inequality, I guess, in taxation.
And it's the and economy. I think government do need to recognise, they talk very passionately about AI and digital led, and I entirely understand that. We can all get very excited, but it's not an or. It's not about actually cash cowing your bricks and mortar economy to fund the future. We will still be here. Hospitality, and particularly pubs, have a long history, hundreds of years of history of repurposing their business and making sure they continue to be relevant, and we will be there. And when that digital economy drops in anger, there will be more remote working, there will be more virtual meetings and productivity. So the pub becomes ever more important as probably one of the last places in communities where we're all going to come together and reconnect as human beings.
Some of the interesting points you made, and the CAM report brought this out, is the tax which hospitality and pubs provide to the UK economy, and the employment which it provides to the UK economy is huge. And sometimes there's probably the perception that, particularly through the pandemic, for obvious reasons, hospitality and pubs needed quite a lot of support. And there was a degree, I guess, that maybe painted a slightly negative picture about working in hospitality and working in pubs. How do we get that balance where we try and articulate the opportunities within the sector, career opportunities, without being seen to be going to government asking for help.
There's a short-term need to invest in our sector. You know, we've got these headwinds. They're not going to wash out in 12 months. It's going to take a number of years, and we don't want to lose long-standing, viable businesses for the sake of a little bit of investment, which is going to actually power growth, and the government will get a return on that investment as well. And we need to make that case very clearly as we head into the spring budget. The other, though, is the stories are there. We need to get better at storytelling. You know, people talk about from bar to boardroom. I prefer entry level to entrepreneur, because actually, do the generation coming through want to go and join boards? Not necessarily. Do they want to run an incredibly diverse and vibrant hospitality business? Absolutely. And we've got great ambassadors already doing that. So we need to get that story straight, that you can come in. Again, the government is pushing higher level technical qualifications at every step. And this is an and, not an or again. And you will have people leaving secondary school settings because of lots of things, from neurodiversity, just natural talent. That's not where their talent lies. But, you know, so they come out of secondary education not with an awful lot of, you know, academic achievement, but huge potential as entrepreneurs, because they can connect people, they can drive teams, they can create an amazing experience. And actually, some of the most successful people in our sector haven't got a classical education going through. We are, you know, absolutely that powder keg of innovation and entrepreneurialism. So we need to change language. We need to shout about the stories. We need to show that actually there is a good living in this trade, because yes, it's tough, but we've got some operators who are doing incredibly well right now. Let's not dismiss those. You know, the frustration is if you're in the middle now, it's very, very tough to make a profit. But there's a huge opportunity, because I say those costs will fall away. So look, the BII, we're actually very proudly in 2024 going to launch a new membership offer called Workforce, which is all about putting our arms around these team members and keeping them inspired about a career journey in our sector. They may, move around, and we know that. I don't think we're ever going to fix, that people move from place to place. That's a good thing. What we don't want to do is lose them from the sector. Yeah. Want to keep them in, keep them passionate, using professional development, which is really, really important, and something that we do incredibly well to kind of power their careers. And we've got some very, very young people in an early stage of their career running, huge businesses, and they're complex, which also makes them demanding, but incredibly interesting places to work.
But I think we've seen hospitality just get a lot more professional, whether it's training and development, whether it's food delivery, experiential delivery, or wherever it is a vastly different world to what it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. And you probably see the caliber of people coming into the sector has changed as well. It was probably seen as a place to retire into at one point, and now people genuinely see that as a profession. In terms of the BII and your vision going forward, how do you sort of look to lock into that and sort of grow your membership and sort of dive into that entrepreneurial bit?
Well, I think for the sector, it's going to be a very different type of experience through pubs. As I said, sustainability, really important. We need to lean into that. Consumers are really asking for it. Yes, they want value, and that's not cheap now. That's an expectation, an experience alongside paying a fair amount of money for it. But then very quickly after that, they're looking for a sustainable experience. They're looking for a story about locally source food or drink, that little bit of theatre. So sustainability is one. Diversifying their business is another. They're going to have to think very, very differently and capture the pound of every type of demographic and make their pub far more adaptable. So if it's breakfast clubs in the morning, and pubs do that incredibly well. If it's a place for business meetings or catch-ups, at this point, non-alcohol related and still great sources of revenue, through to traditional kind of offers as you hit into the evening trade. It is now, I believe, death of mediocrity. Whatever you do it incredibly well. If that's a great pint of beer, make sure that quality standards there, make sure it's in the right glass, which drives me absolutely crackers. But also, I want to hear the story. I want to, when I go in, have you tried this one? We just had this one in. Get excited about the products, because it's a unique offering in those space. So there'll be lots of themes that our operators are really going to kind of have to grapple with going forward. And at the heart of that is also building a coherent team, building a talented, high potential team, because they see the world very differently as well, and you're trying to appeal to them as a demographic. So who better positioned to help you on that journey than the people who look and sound like the people you're trying to appeal to? So lots of challenges. The BII, we've very proudly grown in, significantly over the last few years. 13,000 members across the UK now, predominantly running single pubs. We're keen to expand that because we believe we can help even more. You know, our purpose is very simple. You know, we're here to keep pubs thriving at the heart of every community, and we're going to do everything we can to do that. So there's lots of free traders out there who really are very unsupported day to day and are very busy in their business, and actually, you know, connecting to something like the BII will give them that inspiration, innovation, shared best practice from people that run pubs that look like theirs, and maybe that one or two ideas that they can grab from that will make the real difference going forward. But going back to team members, you know, I mentioned workforce, really important for us that we put our arms around these team members, get them excited about the opportunity and keep them in the sector, because we need real high potential individuals to create that little bit of something. Because when we write that review of that brilliant pub, we might mention the food, we might mention the drink, but we absolutely mention the people we interacted with and how it made us feel. So I think, you know, it is a rosy future. I'm not dismissing the headwinds, I'm not dismissing the realities, and we're not going to get everybody through this. That's very clear as well. But the ones that come out the other side are going to be very different, far more versatile, you know, more complicated businesses in a sense, looking after lots more customers, but they have the absolute potential to do that, and they've done that before.
If you had a sort of magic wand and you could go to government, what would you like them to do over the next sort of short to medium term?
There are some things around a fair taxation regime that's going to stimulate growth. That's at the heart of that. But also connecting the dots. We do amazing work in social and community space. So if we go to ESG, we hear lots of now, and we talked about the environmental elements for sustainability, but our social footprint is huge. You know, go back to, you know, kind of, you know, tackling isolation and loneliness. We're a real solution. You know, I often describe it, it's one of the last places you go and start a conversation with a stranger. And that is invaluable. When we're trying to move forward as a society with all the challenges we have, social cohesion in communities is so important. The pub has a central role. So we need government to recognise that. And there's lots of other initiatives out there. I'm very proudly a trustee of Only a Pavement Away, that is all about getting, you know, people facing incredible vulnerabilities, be them homeless or ex-vets or prison leavers, into secure employment in our sector, is have those exciting jobs and rebuild their lives with us. And that charity, it does amazing work, and again connects the dots. You're moving people who are, you know, economically unfortunately dependent on the state to economically active and generating for all of us as well. And most important, they've improved their lives. And I think our sector connects those opportunities like no other.
Yeah, it's trying to get people to recognise the importance of hospitality of the pub to society, isn't it?
Let's just keep showing what great pubs do, because that's the most important thing. So going back to, let's make sure, you know, customers and consumers don't lose that pubs are very different places now. If you don't drink, that's fine. If you've got special food needs, that's absolutely fine. If you just want a place to come, sit on your own, read a book, or just have a chat to somebody because you're feeling low, that's good as well. And we need to shout about why we're very different to any other sector.
Thank you very much for your time today. Massively appreciated. Thank you for your insights into the sector. And probably on behalf of your members as well, thank you very much for championing the cause of hospitality in pubs.
My pleasure. Thank you.